In this video, we're going to download and install Intellij, which is the IDE or Integrated Development Environment that we're going to be using in this course to create our Java programs. Now this video is for a Mac, so if you're on a Windows machine or a Linux machine, refer to the appropriate video for your operating system, as there are a few differences when it comes to downloading and installing. Okay, so in a browser, firstly you want to go to JetBrains.com, and JetBrains is the name of the company who have created this product we're going to be using, Intellij IDE. Once we get to that page, I'm going to click on Tools. Then I'm going to come over here to Intellij IDE and click that. And that brings us to a page with information relating to Intellij. Now there's two versions of Intellij that we can install. And if we scroll down towards the bottom of the page, we can see that there's a comparison chart between the two versions. So we've got the Ultimate Edition for web and enterprise development, and the Community Edition for JVM, Java Virtual Machine, and Android development. Now the differences are the Ultimate Edition is a paid version of Intellij, and if we scroll down a little bit, you can see there's a free trial available, but after that the trial period has expired, you'll need to pay for the product. That's the Ultimate Edition. The Community Edition, on the other hand, has less features, but is completely free and open source, and you'll never need to pay for it. In this course, the Community version will suffice. There's really no reason to buy the Ultimate Edition, but if you want to do that for some reason, you can take the trial. The other thing I can do is that I can extend the trial by 90 days to give you a total of 120 days trial of the Ultimate Edition. But in my case, what I'm going to do is download the free Community Edition. So I'm going to click on Download, give that a moment to start, and I'm just going to save it to my computer. I'll pause the video now and we'll come back once it's fully downloaded, and we'll continue on with the installation and configuration. Okay, so the download is now complete, so I'm going to come over here and click on the DMG file, which will start the installation process on my Mac, and I'm going to take the opportunity to close down the browser since we've finished with the download. Once it starts, we've got the option to install, and all we need to do is click on the Intellij CE icon, holding the button down and drag it to the Applications folder and release. And the installation is now completed, so I'm going to close this down. And what I'm going to do is start Intellij. So what I'm going to do is now open a window, go to my Applications folder, and I'm going to choose Intellij CE, which is the Community Edition that I've downloaded. Double click that to start the installation process. Okay, when this option comes up, we're going to click on Open. And the first time you install Intellij IDE, you've got the option here to import the settings from another custom location, or to not import any settings. In this case, I haven't got anywhere else to load the settings from, so I'm going to leave the default option selected, Do Not Import Settings, and click OK. Now, between when I've clicked OK and this screen popping up, if you're in Europe and you're affected by the recent privacy updates that are occurring in May 2018, you may see a pop-up asking you to accept privacy terms and conditions. So if that does pop up for you, accept those. In my case, because I'm from Australia, I'm not affected, so I don't need to select anything. And then you'll move on and you'll get to this screen. Now this screen gives you the option of assigning a theme for Intellij, and essentially what it is just the color style or theme that's going to be used during development. Now keep in mind, I'm going to select light here. Keep in mind that you can change these appearances later, and it gives you the options here on how to find out how to do that by going to Appearances, Appearance and Behavior and Appearance. So that's where you'll change it if you like, but I'm going to select that default and click on Next. On this screen, you select the key map scheme. In almost all cases, you'll select the option on the left-hand side, I've never used IDE, and just select the default key map for Intellij IDE. Click on Next. This screen gives you the ability to run the Intellij IDE from the command line. I'm not going to be doing that in this course because I prefer to start the GUI interface and load my code and projects, etc. from there. But if for some reason you want to have the ability to run Intellij from the command line, this would be where you'd select that. Click on Next. So Intellij IDE is a very versatile program. It's got lots of different plugins and settings that you can configure. And this screen is giving you the ability to choose some. And basically it's a list of tools that are enabled by default. Now what I suggest you do here is just leave everything as is and move on to the next screen, noting that you can always install additional plugins and uninstall them, etc. later on. The other thing I want to point out here is If you're running the Intellij, the Ultimate Edition of Intellij IDEA, you'll see that that'll have even more options than the ones that I'm actually showing here. And that's because you're paying for the Ultimate Edition, they give you extra plugins and so forth to use. In this case, I'm just going to click on Next. Same deal here with the featured plugins. I'm going to leave everything as its default, but if you wanted to, you can make a change. But again, you can always go back into Preferences plugins later and configure things at some future point in time. So I'm going to click on Start using Intellij IDEA. At this point, we've now got Intellij IDEA installed. Now what we need to do is make some configuration changes. Firstly, to configure the Java development kit so that it works with Intellij, and then there's a few other settings we need to make. So to get access to the JDK, we're going to click on Configure, select Project Defaults, and select Project Structure. And that brings up this screen here. And initially when we go in here, you'll see that it says No SDK. We click on the drop down, there's nothing there. So what we need to do is configure the Java development kit to work with Intellij IDEA. We click on New to do that. We select JDK. We've got lots of options here because Intellij IDEA is a versatile IDE that works with a number of different languages. But we want the JDK here, so click on that. And what should happen is that Intellij IDEA should find the installation of JDK 10 that we've only just installed in the previous video. So if I click the drop down here, you can see that if I come down here and have a look, it's JDK 10.01 JDK. So that's the JDK that we installed, and it should update and find the one for you automatically. If not, you go to your library folder, as you can see there, select Java, Java Virtual Machines, you choose the JDK, and go into the Contents Home folder. But in my case, it found it automatically, so I just need to click on Open. And you can see what's happened there. Now that that's been selected, you can see we've now got a project SDK here, now showing Java 10. The other thing you want to make sure you've selected here is to set the SDK at the default. In my case, you can see that it did actually set it automatically, but it should be set to 10, which basically means you've got access to all the features for that particular version of Java. All right, so at this point, that's now complete. So we can click on OK to save those settings. And we're nearly finished now. There's just a few other configuration settings we need to set before we can start actually creating some Java programs. So to get access to those settings, we're going to Configure, and we want to click on Preferences. Next, we want to come down here and click on the little triangle next to Editor. Click on it again, the one that's next to General, and click on Auto Import. There's two options here: Add unambiguous imports on the fly. Check that. There's also Optimize imports on the fly for current project. Click on and check that box as well. And without going into too much detail at the moment, it just makes things a little bit easier to work with by automating some of the things that you would perhaps have to have done manually as a Java developer in the past. We'll talk more about that when we get to that appropriate stage in the course. And next, we want to come down to Appearance and click on Appearance. You want to make sure that Show Line Numbers is checked. Now, as you can see, in my case, it was checked by default, but if it's not checked on your installation for whatever reason, make sure you check that. And finally, we want to come down here to Code Folding and click on that. And what you want to make sure here is that Closures is deselected, and uncheck that. And also Generic Constructor and Method Parameters, we're going to uncheck that as well. So what code folding is, it's actually hiding some of the source code that programmers don't need to access very often. But in our particular case, because we're starting out learning Java, it's best that we see all the code and that the IDE doesn't try to hide anything from us. So that's why we've done that. And the other thing here is we're going to also take the checkbox off one-line methods. Once we've done that, we can click on OK. And at this point, we're now fully configured Intellij IDEA and the JDK, and we're ready to start creating our first Java program. So let's end the video here. In the next video, it's time to start writing, as I mentioned, the Java program. So you want to skip the videos that relate to setting up the JDK and Intellij IDEA for different platforms, because we're now set up and configured on the Mac, and you can move on and skip those videos and go to the next video where we start talking about creating some programs. So I'll see you in that next video.